Okay, hey there, folks. Since book tour and conventions have been put on hold for a bit, I figured I would bring book tour to you. So, welcome to Russ's Rockin Rollercoaster Season 3, intriguing interviews with creative minds. With us tonight is my friend SJ Rozan. She is the author of 16 novels and winner of multiple awards, including the Edgar, Seamus, Anthony, Nero, and McCavity, the Japanese Maltese Falcon, and the Private Eye Writers of America Life Achievement Award. SJ also edited 2 short story anthologies, and many of her own 75 plus short stories have appeared in best of collections. Hello, SJ.
Hi, guys. Hi, Russ. Hi, everybody.
All
Thank
right.
you for coming.
Well, all right. We got a great hour lined up, so hold on. All right, guys, just a heads up to the folks at home. Feel free to send me notes or questions that you have for SJ in the chat box, and we'll get to some at the end of the show. Okay, SJ, so we're going to start as we always do at the beginning. So where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in the Bronx, New York, and I grew up in the Bronx. I lived there until I went to college. And after college, I came back to New York. Then I went to grad school in Buffalo. I went to college in Ohio. I went to grad school in Buffalo, and then I came back to
Okay.
New
Well,
York.
you're giving me your whole life story, and you got to give me space. There's a lot of
Whoops.
stuff I want to cover. A lot of
Sorry.
stuff.
Sorry.
Skipping over all the good stuff.
Oh, all right.
All right. So, all right. So you grew up with. So was it just you?
You want me to go back to the Bronx?
I'll ask you what I want, and you'll just jump in. So,
I have an older brother and 2 younger sisters.
Okay, an old and 2 younger sisters. Okay, so did you guys live in an apartment? Were you in a house? What was it?
We lived in a series of houses. I was born when we lived in an apartment, but we lived in 3 houses after that. It was sort of every time my mother got pregnant, my father bought a bigger house.
Okay.
And the house I remember best is the one we lived in from the time I was probably 5 until I was 13. And so that's the house I feel like I grew up in. Then we moved again while I was in high school, but always within a mile of each other in the Northwest Bronx.
Okay. Huh.
And
so were you and your brothers and sisters? Were you guys close? Were you not?
We played together. We weren't terribly close. We are now much closer, but we hung out. We each had our own friends, and my brother was a boy, so of course, all his friends were boys, so they were like way too weird for me. It turns out I really, like hanging out with guys, but then it was like, oh no, they're creepy. And so, but my best friend was a boy, though. He lived across the street, and we took all kinds of chances together. We went running across the railroad tracks and stuff.
So what was the city like back then when you were in the Bronx?
Well, when I was a kid in the Bronx, we didn't go down to Manhattan very much. I mean, it was a fairly big deal. Occasionally, my mother, for reasons I could not to this day tell you, would decide it was a good idea to drive downtown to pick up my father from work. He worked way downtown. He was in the insurance business. And so we would drive all the way down the West Side Highway. And that was a long drive in those days. So we pick him up, and I don't know, maybe we went out to dinner after that, or just maybe it was when he had to take some boxes full of something. I don't know, but that was fun. But we didn't otherwise go into Manhattan very much. Our life was in the Bronx.
Were you a Yankees family?
I'm sorry?
Were you a Yankees family?
Oh yeah. I was much more of a jock than my brother or sisters. So my father would take me to Yankee Stadium. They weren't particularly interested, and my mother was like, go. So we would sit in the bleachers with our picnic basket.
And, who was your favorite Yankee back then?
Oh, Mickey Mantle.
Oh, the Mick.
But I could have then, and I possibly could now, if pressed, name that entire 59 to 61 Yankees roster. That was a great team. I just adored them.
So you got to see Marison Mantle.
I did. Maris and Mantle and Bobby Richardson and Moose Scourin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they were
oh,
fun. They were
that-
great.
that's great.
My
So,
my mother
uh,
my mother was a phys ed instructor.
hmm,
So she was also a jock, but baseball was not her sport.
I see. Okay. So you grew up in the Bronx, and then you said you went. So when you went to school, you said you went to where? You went to Ohio, you said?
Yeah, I went to Oberlin. My thought was, let me see what it's like out in the country. You know, I've been living in the city all my life.
Right.
Let me see what it's like out in the country. So I went to Oberlin, which was then much more out in the country than apparently it is now. But it uh, it was great. I loved it. Those were highly political years. They were highly experimental years in terms of education, and I had a wonderful time. But there was never any question in my mind, actually, that I was not going to go back to a city. It might not have been New York.
Hmm.
It might have been. I thought, San Francisco, maybe Los Angeles, but I ended up back in New York, then Boston. I lived for a
Well,
couple of years in
hang
Boston.
on. Before we go past that, were you in Ohio during the Kent State riots?
I was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Oberlin closed down immediately and became Kent State in exile because they had closed Kent State so that the kids all had to go home.
So
They didn't want to go home,
what
so
was that? What was that
they
like?
came to Oberlin. It was I hate to say it, but it was fabulous. We were we the Oberlin faculty was very much behind or in step with the students in our zeal to protest, and so we hosted any of the Kent State students who wanted to come, and we held teach-ins and events and days after the shootings.
Hmm,
There was a huge event in Washington, 4 or 5 days, I forget, a huge kind of march on Washington.
right.
And Oberlin, not only did we all, rent every U-Haul truck in Ohio and drive there with us in the backs of the U-Haul trucks, which is about as illegal as can be. But the orchestra had in 4 days put together the Mozart Requiem and performed it in the National Cathedral
Wow.
under the direction, as a conductor, the head of the music conservatory. So
Mhm.
we were united
So
on this.
So let me ask you. So I mean, especially since the times that we're living in, obviously this is some of the most politically, incendiary times in my lifetime, probably. Did that time then, did it stay with you, or was it sort of an event of the moment, and then it kind of passed, or did it affect you in some deeper way?
It absolutely stayed with me. I had been politically active in high school also, um, but I mean, my family is basically what we call among my peoples a red diaper family. You're meaning that they're so far left that the children are diapered with red commie diapers. Um,
Okay.
so that we had been politically active, and participating.
Sorry, you're freezing up there a little bit.
And it,
Sorry, I'm losing you a little bit there, SJ. Is your signal okay? You're freezing on me. Sorry about that, folks. A little technical glitch on your side.
am I back?
Yeah.
Am I back? Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So you were in Ohio. So then you said ultimately you made your way to Buffalo. Where did you go? Where in Buffalo?
Well, I went to live in Boston for a while, and then I went to Buffalo because I went to grad school. I went
At,
to architectural school there.
did you go to UB or Buff State?
UB.
Okay.
Um,
I was a Buff State guy myself.
oh, really?
I was. I had a scholarship to both,
Uh-huh.
but but at the time UB was just, it was too big a school. I wasn't ready. So I went to the small one. Actually, I wanted to ask you about this because during my day job, I'm a real estate. I work in real estate. So I deal with architecture, buildings, all that kind of stuff all the time. So talk to me about the architecture. What was that something you always wanted to do?
No. I was thinking about what I could do. This was in the days when I thought, well, you can't just be a writer because you want to be a writer. You have to have, I don't know, some, sign from God or something. And so I didn't start writing then. I thought I needed to do something interesting, creative, and socially useful, that you had to be socially useful. And I thought, well, architecture really does that. It does all those things. And so I went to architecture school, and when I graduated, I spent many years working in the field, overlapping with my writing. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoy architecture. I was not a designer. I was never a good designer. And a spec writer. My interest is in looking at a building and knowing why this is here and that's there, and what these things all mean and how it's put together. So I did a lot of it in the office I worked in. I did a lot of the restoration work because a lot of people come out of school and they want a building they can put their name on. They can see, that's my style. That's the kind of work I do. I was not interested in that. I was interested in the architect who was there before me. Why did he do the things he did that I am now restoring? And we did a lot of restoration. We did a lot of public work, restoration, energy work. It was a great firm.
What project? Give me a couple of projects that you worked on.
We did the 19th precinct and the firehouse next door on East 67th Street in Manhattan. We did a renovation of the World of Birds at the Bronx Zoo.
Oh, cool.
We did the 41st precinct in the Bronx. The original 41st precinct was what they called Fort Apache.
Right. Wow.
And then it was all around it, the city knocked down the buildings, leaving it the only thing standing. So they started calling it the Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, did they really?
And then they decided it needed a new building. And so we designed that new building, which is now, I think 25 years old or something, but it was new at the time. And we did a firehouse for Rescue 1 on 43rd Street, West 43rd Street, because we got a call in the middle of the night. It's not funny. It is funny. We got a call in the middle of the night from somebody high up in the fire department who said, I understand you do restorations. You've done firehouse and police station restorations. And my boss said, yeah, it's like 3 a.m. And the guy said, well, can you come down to 43rd Street? The piano factory next door to the firehouse just burned and collapsed on the firehouse. And we want to know what can be saved.
Wow.
And my thought was, wow, how that must have sounded. Can you imagine a collapsing piano factory? And so we could not restore the building. There was structurally, it was impossible, but we did save the facade, which was 100 years old and which the firefighters loved, and moved it to the internal wall in the back where the kitchen is. So that's where they hang out, where that
wait, and this was 43rd and what?
43rd, I think 11th.
I know. I used to work right around the corner. I used to work on 44th Street between 10th and 11th, where the Hess station used to be, and the firehouse is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you. So go ahead.
It's a gray granite structure. It's actually quite severe and quite beautiful.
So let's skip ahead a little bit.
And now you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. you spoke at Davos at what point in Switzerland? How did that
I did.
how did that happen? Talk to me about that. Oh, you're frozen again. Hold on.
Oops.
There we go.
Am I unfrozen?
You're unfrozen.
Okay. The way Davos works, there are 3 groups of people invited. Heads of state, or, secretaries of this, that, and the other.
No.
Heads of industry, commercial, CEOs, that kind of thing, and what they call faculty. And the faculty are artsy types who give a gloss of respectability to this otherwise completely networking, high-level networking conference.
Right.
Okay. And so I was faculty. This was 2003. Yes, it was 2003, because after 9/11, the first thing that happened was that Davos that year was moved, the next Davos, which was January, was moved to Manhattan as a sort of show of strength, as a solidarity thing.
No.
But right away, they started planning Davos 2003, and they wanted to talk about violence. This was going to be the subject of the sessions in the meeting. And they wanted writers, as well as other kinds of artists, and they wanted women. And I really put this down at least 50% to this fact. I had a website early on. And so when they said, whom shall we get? And they made a list of female crime writers, they could check me out very easily.
Wow.
And so I got a letter, and I first said to myself, well, this can't be actually Davos that's writing me this letter. And I called my nephew, who was also a red diaper baby, and I said, listen, I can't go, right? I mean, this is the most reactionary writing. They're not going to listen to me. And he said, well, if you don't go, they really won't listen to you. And I thought, well, he's right. So I went, and I gave a number of sessions, and I was present at a number of other sessions. I had some good conversations. I made a lot of points about violence, and violence against women in particular. I don't know if anybody actually listened. I bonded a lot with a lot of the other faculty, because we all felt a little bit marginalized. We were a little bit window dressing, but we made good friends among ourselves. And you don't know whom you reach and when.
Right.
And whether anything I said there then resonated with anybody later. It may have, it may have meant something that then led to something else. So that was the deal. That was, and it was fascinating. I was absolutely just, I was taking notes constantly.
Wow. Who were the big speakers at the time? Do you remember?
Queen Noor, what's his name? Oh, he even ran for president once. General, he's a general. Thin face. I liked him a lot. If only I could remember his name.
Okay, I'll take you. I can't
remember anything anymore, but if he comes, Wesley Clark.
Okay.
Wesley Clark. There were some important people from China. I don't remember who now.
Okay.
But
right,
high up in the government there.
So your crime writing got you to Davos. So I wanted to transition. So obviously crime writing, crime and mystery is kind of your game. But how did you first get into, what was your first introduction into sort of, crime and mystery fiction? Like what kind of got you hooked?
Oh, when I was a kid, I mean, it goes back to Nancy Drew. I used to get a Nancy Drew book. That was when you could, get a series book once a year. Now you can get a Nancy Drew book once a week, I think. But I would get one for my birthday every year, and I was so excited, and I would read it, and I would read them over and that kind of thing. As I got a little older and started watching TV, the old Perry Mason,
Mhm.
um, all my folks like this stuff too. So we would watch, as a family, all the crime and mystery shows, and it was always that the private eye voice. It
Mhm.
was always that sort of outsider voiceover, um, telling the story,
Yep.
world weary, not part of anything, having succeeded in Hitler and McDonald and stuff, you having that problem.
So was that the appeal for you? Sort of it sounds like there's that was the outsider-ness. Was that the
Yeah,
appeal? Was it?
yeah. I was an outsider. I was the brainy kid who went and read books and I never fit in really. And so yeah, it was the outsider becoming a hero instead
Mm.
of a dork. I mean,
Right. Uh-huh.
that's I was a dork, but Robert Mitchum was a hero. And that was what I guess was attracted to,
So
because when
yeah.
I started writing, that was the voice I was writing in, that especially Bill Smith, that kind of it's everything's too late, it's, the um everybody knows that the war is over, everybody knows that the good guys lost, that voice. um
So let me
and
go ahead. Mhm.
No, go ahead.
No, no. So when did you first get serious about writing? I mean, it's one thing to have an interest in it, but when did you really start diving into it?
I had been working at this firm that I spent my whole career in the one firm, my architecture career. I'd been working there about 8 years, and I had a moment where I realized that the job was everything I could have wanted in an architectural job. The projects were interesting. As a woman, I had a lot of support from the upper management. I was out in the field a lot. I was running things. I had interesting engineers to work with. Everything was great, and I wasn't happy. It was all interesting. It was fun, but I wasn't feeling satisfied and fulfilled and thrilled about getting up in the morning. And as soon as I realized that, this little voice in the back of my head said, "Weren't we going to write a book?" And I thought, well, all right, let me try that. And if it doesn't work out, um, let me think of something else. I'll cross book writing off the list. And I took a course at one of the adult ed places in New York. Um, it was a 6-week course, and it was very hard. I mean, my writing skills, I had written all during high school and college, but my writing chops were, very rusty. But I took this course, and as hard as it was, I loved it. I, I loved creating characters, creating places, writing. I really, this was really what I wanted to do.
So
So,
yeah, go ahead. No, go.
so I started then writing, just kind of creating, working on the Bill Smith character first. That was my first character, and then I gave him a sidekick, and then I started a book. I went away. I actually did a retreat by myself for a week, um, in March, February, late February, early March, which is mud season in the Berkshires. So I went to the Berkshires because it's easy to get a room. And I just sat there and read and wrote and read and wrote for a week. And I came back with one good paragraph, one opening paragraph. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. And then I started to really work. I did not give up the day job for many, many years. For my first 3 books, I still worked full time. And then I finally said to the boss, I have published 3 books. No, I hadn't published them yet. I had sold 2 of them. And I said, now I'm going to, be a writer, and I would like to work a little less. And so I started working a less and a little less. I was developing longevity in the firm.
Right.
And I was becoming the institutional memory.
Mm-hmm.
The senior partner died. His son took over, with whom I was pretty close. And they didn't want me to leave. So every time I said I'd like to work a little less, they said, fine. And I said, a little less, fine. So in the end, I was working 15 hours a week. I was working 5 afternoons, 3 hours each. And finally, I said, this was after 9/11, and I started writing Absent Friends. And I said, I can't do both. I can't put my full weight down in the novel.
Right.
While I'm still thinking about, I-beams and bricks.
So ironically,
I said,
as you were.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say it was ironic for a crime and mystery writer. They didn't want you to leave because you actually knew where the bodies were buried.
Yeah, I did. And when I finally left, which was a year after that, it took us a year to untangle me, sort of.
Right.
But when I finally left, I said, I'm just down the block. I'm not far.
Right.
I will come in anytime. And for a number of years, they would call me to do some spec writing. That was my specialty. And the thing about spec writing is that spec is, if people who don't know, it's the specification, which is the written book that goes with the drawings, that basically tells what things in the drawings mean. It's a very technical manual, essentially, and a legal, it's what you lean on in legal cases, and you flip through and stuff like that. And almost every architect I know sticks his fingers in his ears and closes his eyes and sings very loudly when you tell him you want him to write a spec.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. So for years, that firm would ask me to come back when they had a big spec, something that they didn't think that they had enough people to handle.
So
I would go back and do it.
Okay. So
it would take me a couple of weeks, and that was great.
Great.
Go ahead, Russ.
So getting back to your books, you were talking about, you started writing these characters. Are you more interested in telling a great mystery or focusing on the character?
On the characters. The characters, characters are the people who make the mystery. They're the mystery is, why do people act the way they do? This is the world's biggest mystery.
Right.
And I am fascinated by interesting characters. When people walk into my books, as they do all the time, and I realize they are not who I expected them to be, and I just watch them as their lives unfold, and it really fascinates me. I do understand, though, that readers like to see the characters actually doing something, and doing something that makes a story, not just walking around all day.
Yeah.
So I try to encourage them to actually.
So within your mystery life, you've written a little bit about vampires.
About what? I'm sorry.
About vampires.
Oh, vampires! Yeah.
Tell me about vampires.
Vampires. Well, my take on vampires is a little different from some other people, but it depends which universe you're in. I was between books and not sure what I wanted to do next. And my friend Carlos Dews came to me and said, I have the best idea. He lives in Rome. And he said, I have the best idea. I've been working on this for years. This is a really, really good idea. But I'm not a crime writer. This needs to be a thriller. I don't know how to do it. And he told me the idea. And I said, that sounds like a lot of fun. So we worked together. I did all the writing and I would send stuff to him and he'd say, well, you can't do this and this works here. And I'd say, okay, look up this church for me and find out this stuff. I went a couple of times to the places we were using and walked around them. And, it was a great hardship going to Rome, but I had to do it. And these were vampire books, but they weren't just vampires. We had a vision, which in the second book, you can see starting to come to fruition, of all the paranormal creatures of legend around the world being related, physically related, all going back to a single event, a single basically a meteor strike, put it simply, that released a certain viruses and bacteria on the earth, and so all these paranormal creatures developed. And so the vampires were our first ones, and they were always going to be central. But in the second book, they meet the werewolves, or the shapeshifters, not really werewolves, but shapeshifters. Okay. Right. And we had this whole plan. I mean, we had leprechauns and the jinn, the sand spirits of Saudi Arabia, and we had the hopping ghosts of China. We had all of these guys. Unfortunately, the publisher, they closed the imprint.
Oh, geez.
And that was the end of that.
Oh.
So, but man, I enjoyed those. I really did.
Yeah.
So
I actually,
that was the best.
I actually have something coming out at either, I think this year, maybe next year, part of a bigger series of some descendants of like the Jekyll and Hyde family I've got coming out. So I'm pretty excited about that one. So, all right. So,
Great.
So let's talk about, so you got a new book. I'm going to do a little share screen here, and you guys make sure you can see what we're doing. Can you see this?
Not yet. Nope. I got nothing.
Nothing? Let's see. Hold on. Oh,
Nothing.
wait. And how about this?
There it is.
There it is. Okay. So what do we got here?
Oh, look, it's moving through the, it's moving through the sky.
There we go.
Good job.
Okay. What do we got?
That is The Art of Violence. That gorgeous cover is from Pegasus. Pegasus Books, which is my new publisher. And you want me to talk about the book? Is this?
Yeah. What do we got?
Yeah. Okay. The Art of Violence is it's a Bill Smith book narrated by Bill Smith, and Lydia Chin is the sidekick. And in the book, there is an artist who has been in prison for a violent murder that he committed. He's now out. He has been gotten out by a consortium of people in and around the art community, because in prison it was discovered that he is a great outsider artist, self-taught artist. And everybody got all excited and wanted him out of prison so that he could paint. And he's out, but the book opens. There have been 2 murders of young women who look very much like the woman he killed that got him sent to prison. And he comes to Bill Smith and says, there have been these murders and I think I'm doing it. I don't know. I drink, I black out. You got to either prove I'm doing it or prove I'm not doing it. And if I'm doing it, I want to go back to prison because I don't want to keep killing people. And so that's the setup.
Wow.
And the book takes a wide, uh, uh, not even detour, it takes a wide tour through the art world in New York. The art world in New York is no different from the art world anywhere else. There's so much money and so little actual, what's the word I'm looking for? Anything objective. It's all subjective, and
Sure.
there's huge amounts of money floating around, and it's an extraordinary place. So I thought I would do that while I looked at the question of what responsibility people have in a situation like this.
Okay.
So that's the
All right.
that's the deal.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. So, quick interlude for those of you who may have come in a little bit late. If you have any questions for comments for SJ, just put them in the chat box and we will get to them at the end of the show. But now, as we do in every show, it is time for us to spin the wheel. Okay, on the wheel, we got 7 categories, which I created just for this show. Wherever the wheel spins is what you play. And the categories are Silence of the Lambs, Stranger in a Strange Land, Fear of Flying, Play It Again, Sam, Trick or Treat, Cold Case, and Tell It to the Judge. All right, I'm going to give it a spin, and wherever it lands, that's what you play. You ready?
Yeah, I'm not sure how this works, but okay.
Right. Okay, you ready? And you got. All right, Trick or Treat. So, as a kid, what was your favorite Halloween costume?
Oh, my favorite Halloween costume. Friend boy across the street.
Oh.
Am I still there?
There you go. You're back.
Did I freeze? Yeah. Okay. My favorite Halloween costume was the time where I went as Dr. Frankenstein and he went as my monster,
Uh-huh.
and we went together. And he would, you know.
Sorry, we lost you again. Froze for a second.
To the door.
Sorry, you froze.
So he would hold out the. Oh, okay. We would go to the door, and I would ring the doorbell and go trick or treat, and he would thump up there with the bag, the brown paper bag, hold it open, and we just had the best time. We had makeup on, and we made our own costumes. We always made our own costumes.
This was you and who? This was you and who?
My best friend from across the street.
Oh, your best friend. Okay.
His name was Randy. Randy Nelson was his name. He was a year younger than I was, and we used to play together all the time. And that was the best.
All right, very cool. Okay, so thank you, SJ. So what we're going to do is we're going to move to our advice column. You and I are both in the writing business. So, what's the best and worst advice someone has ever given you about writing?
Okay, about writing, not about publishing.
Either.
Okay, about writing. A book. Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. Come on. Annie Dillard, who said in her book, and I forget the name of the book, but it's worth reading. It's her writing advice book. She said, don't ever save anything for a better book or a better place in the book you're writing. If it's come up now, use it now. And I have used that advice any number of times for dialogue, for action, for ideas, outline. So going seems a little, should I, but I do. I because Annie Dillard said to, and boy, was she right. she went on to say that these things bubble up from below like water in a well, and if you don't take off what's at the top, you won't get more. So that was the best advice.
Okay.
The worst advice I ever got was you have to outline. I don't outline. You don't have to outline. If you're an outliner, you outline. If you're not an outliner, you don't outline. Those, it's like 50-50 right down the middle of the fiction world. And we stare at each other across the divide and cannot figure out how the other guys do that. But whichever way you do it is the way you do it. So I was told to outline. It never worked. And I gave it up really fast. And I actually have to credit Sarah Paretsky, because I heard her on a panel while I was struggling with the idea that I had to outline. And she said she didn't outline. And somebody else on the panel said, "Oh my God, Sarah, don't say that. You're a published author. You have at that point 4 books out." But all these young people here will worry that that will think that it's okay for them not to outline, and don't say that. And I was thinking, oh, shut up and let her talk. She just
so you're a pantser.
She made this. I don't like the term, but I am not a plotter.
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've added 2 new segments to the show for a writer's guest.
Oy.
And the first is the revision decision. When writing a manuscript, whether it's a short story, a novella, novel, play, what have you, it will always require revisions when you really need to dig in and clean up what you got. What's your approach to editing your own work?
Well, I do it in 2 parts. One part is I do it every day. I start with the pages I wrote yesterday and reread them and rework them and retype them. And that gets me going for the pages for today. So I'm constantly sort of going back and forward and, that kind of thing. When I'm done, I put the thing aside very briefly. I'm not one of these people who can put a book in the drawer for a month and then come back, but a couple days. And then I read it again from the beginning. And while I write, I keep a pad, yellow pad by the side of the computer, and I make notes. Things like, well, sometimes they're specific. Make sure that this street really intersects that street. And if it doesn't, find something that really does. But sometimes there are things like strengthen the anger of the sister in the beginning. And so as I go, I'll be reviewing my notes and getting to places and either doing those things or looking at it and saying, well, I made that note in the middle of the book, but at this point it doesn't need to be done, so I'm not going to do it. So I will go through the whole book then again, and do all that revising, and then I send it to my agent. Okay. And I make whatever his suggestions are. I either take them or don't, and make those changes, and then he tries to sell it to somebody.
All right, fair enough. Okay, good stuff. All right, now we're going to discuss how you feel about the two-fisted love monkey. Now, as writers, when we put out our work and put ourselves out there, criticism of all kinds comes with it. Criticism being the two-fisted love monkey, the good, the bad, and everything in between. How do you feel about reviews and criticism of your work? Do you take it to heart? Does it roll off you? Does some stick with you more than others?
I think, like a lot of writers, I am sorry to say that the bad reviews and the bad criticism sticks with me much more than the good
stuff. Good ones, right?
Yeah, that is, you get 5 really good reviews and you think, boy, that's nice. And then you get one bad one and you think, oh, he really knows. So I don't read things like Amazon reviews because they just make you crazy. Because I can't read the 4 and 5 star ones and then leave the 1 and 2 star ones alone. And so I just don't do that. But I do read what's in the paper and PW and stuff like that. I've been very lucky with this book. That stuff has all been good. And that makes my publisher very happy too. But I do react, sadly. That is, I mean, not only sadly do I react, but I get sad at the bad reviews. And I think, oh my God, who was I to ever think I was a writer? This is a disaster. Why am I doing this?
It's the worst.
Sarah Paretsky, I will bring up again, is writing a book at this moment that she says is the worst book she ever wrote. And I wonder if she doesn't think that with every book. I do at some point. I think, wait a minute, whose idea was this? This is really stupid. This isn't working. Who's going to want to read this? This is awful. And then, I get over that and I go on.
All right. That was great. We've got a few minutes. Let's see if there's, all right. I don't think we have a question for SJ. Here we go. Can you talk about all the teaching that you do for writing students?
Oh, yeah. Is that from Marjorie? Thank you, Marjorie.
It is.
Yeah, I do teach. I have 2 ongoing classes now. We've been meeting on classes I do in New York. I've been doing these 2 for a number of years. There are a couple of published writers in them and a couple of hoping to be published writers. Pretty much everyone has by now finished at least one novel. I have had a couple of my writers have short stories published in magazines. It's been very exciting. One of them in the Best American Mysteries this year, which I did not get into, but my student did. So I was excited about that. And I really love to teach. I teach in as many places as I can. I have a regular gig that also was canceled last year. We're hoping that it'll happen this year in May in Wisconsin for a week at book camp, which is a Novel in Progress book camp. If you want to look it up, or drop me a line on my website and I'll tell you about it. And that's terrific. I love to be there. I have this magical gig for 2 weeks in the summer. If this happens, last year we also had to cancel that, in Assisi, Italy, where I teach a writing workshop for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Which is just, oh man, it was, I'm so lucky that this happened. When I first started doing this one, they called me, these people who ran the workshop, and they said, we've read your books and we like them. You were recommended to us. We can't afford to pay you just to bring you over, put you up and feed you. Would that be okay? And I'm thinking, let me just think about that for a nanosecond.
You had to make yourself wait 10 seconds before saying yes.
I'm telling you. So I do that, and that's the deal. I don't get paid, but I get a 2-week vacation in Italy, and my only obligation is to teach, which I enjoy. So how could this be bad?
Sounds good. All right, so we got one more question for you.
Okay.
So do you enjoy conventions, events, and meeting fans and other authors? And if so, which are your favorites?
Yes, I do. I very much do. This is a lonely profession. It's one of the reasons I didn't leave architecture for a long time, because here you get up in the morning and you're sitting here all day by yourself. And I live alone, so it's not like there's anybody there at the end of the day except the cat, whom you've seen coming and going. That's Bella the cat, who loves Zoom meetings because she thinks everybody's talking to her. But I go to VoucherCon, which I really like, although it's big. It's problematically big sometimes. And Magna Cum Murder is one of my favorites. Now it was canceled. It was shut down. They're never going to do it again. Now they are going to do it again. And it's hard to know. The pandemic has confused everything, but that's a really good one in Indianapolis if you get a chance. I have enjoyed Sleuthfest and Left Coast Crime, both of them a lot. I was at a new thing this year, the last thing I went to before COVID shut everything down, which was McIntyre's Mystery Books in North Carolina, which is an include cows. There are these on the premises, and so that can't be bad, right? There's cows.
All right.
So those but I do enjoy them, and I love to meet fans. I don't know how an author could not like to meet fans. The one thing is, if you follow me into the bathroom and ask me to sign your book, probably that would annoy me. But otherwise, I because a fan is somebody who likes your work. They read your book and they got what you were trying to do. I love that. I feel so flattered.
Hard to go wrong with that. All right. So speaking of which, so we're going to wrap up with a little shameless promotion. So we talked about your new book, The Art of Violence. Where can folks get it? And then what's next for you?
Okay, you can get it at well, I would say a mystery bookstore, but there aren't that many, and I don't know if they're open these days. You certainly can get it at the Mysterious Bookshop. They'll ship it to you. Poison Pen in Arizona had me sign a whole slew of them. They may still have some there. It's going into a second printing, so hold your horses if you can't get the first. You can, of course, get it at the Big Boy Who Shall Remain Nameless, but there's also bookshop.org, which is the alternative to the Big Boy online. And any local bookshop, if your local bookshop is open, you can get it. They will order it for you. It's also available as an ebook and as an audiobook. I have not heard the audiobook. For some reason, it's the publisher who makes these decisions. For some reason, the reader is a woman, even though it's a Bill Smith book, but people tell me it's exceptionally well read.
Oh, very cool.
Okay.
Very cool. So what do we got next for you? What's next?
And what's next for me is I'm working on a Lydia Chin book called Family Business, and it is set in Chinatown. It opens with the death of a Tong leader, a organized crime leader, a natural death, but he has left a building to his niece. And the building, because this is New York and it's real estate, the building becomes the center of a huge, complicated tangle of crime. And Lydia is in the middle of it. So that's what
crime, mystery, and real estate. You said my three favorite words.
Well, this is New York, where there's real estate, there's probably crime and mystery.
Indeed.
And I just thought, well, why not? And in this case, Chinese food.
There you go. So, that was great. All right. So SJ, I want to thank you for a great show. And I want to thank everyone who's watching. I'm your host, Russ Colchamiro. And since we've been talking about crime and mystery, if you're up for a little sci-fi in your intrigue, I'm going to encourage you to check out my sci-fi noir, Crackle and Fire, featuring my hard-boiled intergalactic private eye, Angela Hardwick, who is hired to find a missing intern with stolen corporate files, but soon finds herself tackling with dueling gangsters, hostile protesters, and a madman from Earth with galactic ambitions of his own. Crackle and Fire is available on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. Thanks, SJ. This was a great hour.
I love the idea.
Well,
I love the idea of a madman from Earth with galactic ambitions. This is just a great phrase.
Well,
thank you very much, Russ.
Check it out. I hope you like it. I hope everyone had a good time. And as always, I'll see everyone next week.